You are born into the heat of the Black Land, the Kemet, that thin ribbon of fertile darkness pressed on both sides by an ocean of dead sand. The summer air shimmers at temperatures that crack the lips and blind the eyes. You smell it before you understand it. The sweet rot of Nile mud baking under the sun. The dung smoke of the common villages, and drifting from your father's halls, something else. Myrrh and frankincense. Resins so rare a fistful is worth its weight in gold. Burning day and night in bronze braziers until the very air grows thick and perfumed and divine. This is your inheritance. You are the son of Pharaoh, the greatest builder Egypt has ever known, the man who stacked stone into the heavens and reshaped what a king could be. Your mother is Hatipheres, whose own resting place will one day be found, packed with furniture sheathed in solid gold. You are not a beggar clawing upward. You are heir to an empire already pacified, already centralized, already richer than any kingdom in the known world. And yet, here is the wound that will drive everything. Even as a child, you understand the terrible arithmetic of your world. Out beyond the palace walls, a common man eats bread so coarse with desert grit that it grinds his teeth to bleeding stumps. He drinks beer thick as porridge. He is fortunate to see 35 summers before the river takes him. And the king? The god? The man who owns it all? He too will one day breathe his last. The body fails. The flesh returns to dust. And then, oblivion, the worst fate the Egyptian mind can imagine. The soul wandering hungry and forgotten through eternity. The name erased, as if you never were. You watch your father's monuments. You see how one of his great pyramids was built wrong. Its angle too steep, its sides forced to bend halfway up to keep it from collapsing under its own ambition. Even Pharaoh, the god king, the giant whose shadow you live beneath, could fail. Even gold can crumble. Even glory can sink into the sand. And in that moment, the desire is planted. A hunger no treasure can fill. You will not merely be remembered. You will defeat forgetting itself. You will build a machine of stone so vast, so perfect, so eternal, that time will break its teeth against it. You will cheat the one thing that humbles every king, the end. While your father bent his pyramid to survive, you will build one that endures for 4,000 years and stands as the tallest structure on the face of the earth for nearly 38 centuries. You are perhaps 20 years old when your father crosses over and the double crown settles upon your shaved head. The richest, most absolute throne in all creation is now yours. Without challenge, without a rival in the world. The treasury is full. The land is yours. The sun is rising, and you have already decided how you will become a god forever. A throne is not power. A throne is only a chair. Real power must be built, block by block, mind by mind, life by life. And you are about to become the greatest architect of human labor the world has ever seen. Your first decree shocks the court. You will not be laid to rest among your ancestors at Dashur or Saqqara, where your father and his father sleep. You turn your back on the old burial grounds entirely. Instead, you ride north to a flat shelf of solid bedrock overlooking the river, a place called Giza. You stand on that bare stone, the wind tugging your linen, and you see it not as it is, but as it will be. A monument so vast, it will swallow every fortune in the kingdom and turn it into eternity. But eternity requires raw material. And so you do what the richest man alive does. You send your reach to the ends of the earth. You dispatch armies into the burning wilderness of the Sinai, hunting copper to forge your chisels and turquoise to adorn your gods. The wretched desert raiders who dare touch your expeditions are swept aside like sand before the wind. Then you turn south into the deserts beyond Nubia, where your men claw diorite and gold from the rock under a sun that can take a man's life in an afternoon. The treasure flows back to Giza in a river that never stops. Copper, turquoise, granite, and gold, always gold. This is the first vector of your ascent. You do not find wealth. You command the entire machinery of a kingdom to manufacture it. Now watch the second vector, the one that will astonish historians 5,000 years from now. To raise your mountain, you need an army that does not fight, an army that carries. So you build, beside the rising pyramid, an entire city from nothing. A planned settlement with bakeries, breweries, granaries, and barracks, engineered to house, feed, and coordinate more than 20,000 workers at once, rotating through in shifts of 3 months. And here is the part the world will get wrong for thousands of years. The Greeks will later whisper that your pyramid was clawed from the earth by 100,000 enslaved souls, whipped until they broke. It is a lie. Your workers are free men. You pay them in something more valuable than coin, exemption from taxes, beer flowing without limit, and meat. So much meat. Every single day, your machine slaughters and distributes 4,000 kilograms of prime beef, mutton, and goat to keep the muscle of Egypt strong. Men who fall in your service are buried with honor in the sand around your monument, their tombs facing the king they served. You are not a cruel master. You are something the world has never seen before. The supreme manager of the largest, best-fed, most ruthlessly organized workforce in human history. And the rhythm of that machine is merciless. Consider this: 2.3 million blocks of stone, more than 20 years. Do the arithmetic, and it means a single monumental block. Cut, hauled across the desert, dragged up the ramp, and set into place with the precision of a jeweler. Every 2 to 3 minutes. Every 2 minutes, for 20 years, without rest. There is no machine in your world. No iron, no bronze, no wheel for heavy loads, no pulley. Only copper chisels soft enough to bend, sledges dragged over wet clay, and the calculated will of one man bending an entire civilization toward the sky. Now turn to the third vector, the one that costs you nothing in gold and everything in your soul. One afternoon, bored upon your throne of ebony and gold, you summon a magician to the palace, an ancient named Deity, said to be 110 years old, said to know the secret of restoring a severed head to its body. You want a demonstration. And so, with the flat calm of a god who owns every life in the land, you give a command. Bring a prisoner from the cells, and let us remove his head, that we may test this power. The old magician goes pale. Not a human being, my lord, not with the sacred flock of God. For a heartbeat, the room holds its breath, because everyone knows you could simply say the word, and it would be done. A life spent like a copper ring for an afternoon's amusement. But you snap your fingers, your whims shifting like wind. Bring a goose instead. They part its head from its body across the marble floor, and the old man whispers his words. And the two halves crawl toward each other and join, and the bird walks honking across your royal carpet. You smile for the first time in weeks. It is a small scene, but in it lies the whole truth of what you have become. The line you have crossed is not marked in stone. It is this: you have learned that a human life in your hand weighs no more than a feather. And no one, not the magician, not the court, not the gods, can stop you. So you take the final step. you change the order of the universe itself. For centuries, the king was the god's chosen servant on earth. You will not serve. You strip the old priesthood of its authority and pull the worship of the entire kingdom onto yourself. You begin to declare what no one has dared declare: that you are not the representative of the sun. You are the living sun. You are Ra. The priests bow, they smile, they obey, and in the silence of their hearts, they begin to hate you. You do not notice? Why would you? You are the richest, most absolute power on the face of the earth, and your mountain of gold and stone is only halfway to the heavens. The true age of wonders is about to begin. You wake before the sun, because the sun is now yourself, and a god does not let the world see him rise unprepared. Your day begins in water. Servants bathe you in Nile water blended with crystals of natron salt. And then the royal barbers move over your body with copper blades, scraping you clean from scalp to heel. Every hair removed, because body hair is the mark of the animal, and you are divine. Your skin is then anointed with oils pressed from blossoms, until you no longer smell of flesh at all, but of something between a temple and a flower. Then they dress the god. They wrap your head in the nemes, the striped royal cloth of gold and deep blue. They drape you in linen so impossibly fine, the archaeologists of the future will call it ghost fabric. Threads spun so microscopically thin that the cloth is nearly transparent, yet shimmers like water under light, woven by hand over months by the most skilled fingers in the kingdom. A single such garment costs more labor than a common family earns in a decade of harvests. You cinch it with a belt of solid gold, studded with turquoise from your Sinai mines and lapis lazuli, a blue stone so rare it is carried to you across thousands of miles from the mountains of a land that will one day be called Afghanistan. Now step into the palace and let your senses drown. First, the smell. While the world beyond your walls reeks of dung and sweat and the muddy river, your halls are thick with a perfumed fog. Braziers burn day and night with myrrh and frankincense, resins carried up from the distant Horn of Africa, from the land of Punt. These resins are so precious that a single handful is worth more than its weight in gold, and you burn them by the basketful every hour, simply so the air you breathe is worthy of you. Imagine setting fire to bars of gold purely to scent a room, and you begin to understand the arithmetic of your indulgence. Then, the touch. You recline on a bed of black ebony wood, hauled from the heart of Africa, entirely sheathed in beaten plates of solid gold. You do not rest your head on feathers. Feathers are impure. But on a headrest, carved from translucent alabaster, shaped to cradle the base of your skull. Everything your fingers brush is precious metal or polished stone. You have not touched a common surface in years. Then, the taste. While your workers chew gritty barley bread and drink beer thick as gruel, your table groans under roasted goose, fresh figs, the tender flesh of a calf slaughtered that very morning, and pomegranate and grape wine imported and cooled in porous clay jars that sweat in the heat. And there is honey, pure, golden honey, drizzled over everything. To you it is ordinary. To a common man, a single jar of honey represents a fortune he will never taste in his lifetime. Then, the sound. As you eat, the air itself moves for you. Servants stand at the corners of the hall, waving great fans of ostrich plumes, and the soft beat of those feathers is the rhythm of your morning, 20 hands working so that the god need not feel the heat. And then, the sight. You walk to the window of your cedar palace, and there it is. Your mountain rising a little higher each day, its white limestone catching the light. From this single window, you can watch the most expensive project in the history of the human race grow toward the heavens. Let the numbers strike you, because they would stagger any king who ever lived. To build this monument again today, with modern machines and modern engineering, the materials alone would cost some $5 billion. And if you paid the 20,000 workers a fair modern wage across 2 decades, the bill would climb past $25 billion. You are spending the equivalent of the wealth of nations on a single resting place for one body. Your own. After the morning meal comes the business of a god. Scribes kneel before you, reciting the grain count of the entire kingdom. For you own every silo, every field, every loaf. Then comes the daily report from Giza, which you can verify with your own eyes through the window. And here is a fact to make the mind reel. To bring the red granite for the ceiling of your burial chamber. Beams weighing up to 80 tons each, your engineers cut them from a quarry 800 kilometers away at Aswan and floated them down the river on colossal barges of cedar during the flood. Moving a single one of those stones was, for your age, the equivalent of launching a mission to the moon and back to retrieve a rock. And you ordered it done dozens of times. In the afternoon, the god grows bored. You crave the strange and the secret. You are obsessed with magic, with the old stories, with the hidden writings of Thoth. You call your sons to your feet and demand tales of ancient sorcerers, wizards who could fold back the waters of a lake to retrieve a lost turquoise pendant, magicians who could rejoin a severed head. Eternity is yours, and still you hunger for wonders. But your greatest wonders are kept inside the mountain itself. Sometimes you descend into the rising pyramid, into passages so tight the air grows close, and the only light is the black, greasy smoke of animal fat torches. You run your hand along the walls of your burial chamber, and the stone is not rough. It is red Aswan granite, polished to a mirror so fine you can see the torchlight dance in it. You order chests of cedar, brimming with jewels and cups of solid gold, carried inside and set down to be measured against the space. And the sound of that gold, echoing in the silence of the sealed tomb, is the music of your own eternity. And then comes the day of your greatest glory, the day you become, in the eyes of every soul in Egypt, more powerful than nature itself. It is midday at Giza. The crushing sun is at its peak, and then, impossibly, it begins to vanish. The moon swallows the light. A total eclipse. 20,000 workers fall to their knees in the dust, shrieking in terror, certain the great serpent has devoured the sun and the world is ending. But you do not hide. You climb to the highest terrace of your palace in your cloak of white linen and gold, catching the last splinter of light. And you raise your arms to the blackening sky and recite the secret words of Thoth. And when the moon slides past and the sun blazes back to scorch their skin, the people weep into the sand. They have no doubt. The living God has just saved the universe. You are no longer merely the richest man alive. You are the man who commands the sun to return. And it is precisely here, at this dizzying summit, with all of creation bowing at your feet, that the shadows begin to lengthen behind the throne. The higher the throne, the longer the shadow it casts. And the colder, you have made yourself the living sun. But in doing so, you have stripped the old priests of everything they were. They still bow. They still chant your divine names. But you have begun to feel it. The smile that does not reach the eyes. The silence that falls a half-second too late. In the dim temples, men who once held the keys to heaven now whisper your name like a curse. You cannot prove it. You cannot punish a whisper. And so the first poison enters your blood. the slow drip of paranoia, the knowledge that the system you built to glorify yourself is quietly turning its face away from you. Here is the paradox that rules your nights. You own every life, every field, every grain in the richest kingdom on earth. And precisely because you own it all, there is not a single soul left who can love you instead of fear you. The man who has everything has no one. And so you are alone, profoundly, eternally alone. Your wives are your own sisters, chosen to keep the divine blood pure. Your court is a garden of beautiful statues who would say anything to keep their heads. The richest man who ever lived sits at the center of an empire of 20,000 hands, and not one of them is reaching for him. Then comes the deepest fear of all, and it lives inside the very mountain you built. In the dark hours you lie awake on your bed of gold, and the nightmare is always the same. You see them, robbers, generations from now, tunneling into your sacred chamber. You see your earthly vessel torn from its red granite resting place, the gold stripped away, your preserved form scattered to the sand. And then the true terror, your soul unanchored, wandering hungry and nameless through the endless dark, forgotten, as if the greatest king in history had never drawn breath at all. This is the one ending your hundreds of billions cannot buy your way out of. So you fight it the only way a god knows how, with stone. You command something no ruler before you ever dared. The first great system of traps in human history. Enormous slabs of granite, each weighing as much as 50 fully loaded chariots, are engineered to drop into place and seal the inner passages forever, the moment you are laid to rest. You will lock yourself away from the living to keep yourself safe from them. Think on the loneliness of that choice. To spend a fortune building the most magnificent door in the world, only to design it never to open again. But the cruelest betrayal is the one you will never live to see. The priests you humbled will outlast your flesh. Their hatred will pass from mouth to mouth, year after year, century after century, until it reaches a curious traveler from across the sea. And by then, the truth will be buried deeper than your tomb. The great manager, the man who fed his workers prime beef and buried them with honor, will be remembered instead as a heartless tyrant who broke 100,000 souls. They will even invent a tale so dark it stains your own blood. That you grew so desperate for gold that you sold your own daughter's body stone by stone to finish your monument. It will be a lie. But lies, you are learning, are heavier than granite, and they last longer. You sit upon the most absolute throne in creation, master of all you survey. And every defense you have built, the walls, the traps, the divine name, is a confession of the same simple truth. The god is afraid, and the end is coming for him as it comes for every man. It comes in the end, the way it comes for the poorest man in the village, quietly. You are perhaps 60 years old. The chamber smells of medicinal oils and the long weariness of age. Your skin has gone sallow. Your strength has drained into the floor like water into sand. But your eyes are fixed on the one window. The window where your finished mountain stands against the sky, blazing white and crowned in gold, a mountain of pure light. You built your machine against forgetting. It is complete. And now, you let go. Your final breath leaves you. Your heart goes still. And the richest man who ever lived is, in an instant, only a man. The palace falls silent. The high priest enters wearing the bronze, jackal-faced mask of Anubis, and the great work of your eternity begins. For 70 days they tend your vessel in the house of purification, packing it in 300 kilograms of natron salt until the flesh is preserved like leather, anointing you in aromatic resins that cost the wealth of a small city, winding you in kilometers of the finest linen. They lower you into your sarcophagus of red Aswan granite, deep inside the mountain. And then the 50-ton stones drop into place behind them. The passages seal. The light goes out. You have begun your 4,000-year game against time. And here is how the game ends. The part you were never allowed to see. The traps fail. The granite that was meant to guard you forever is no match for human greed. Within a few centuries, robbers find their way in. The gold is stripped. The treasure scatters. And your vessel, the body you spent a kingdom's fortune to preserve, vanishes so completely that 5,000 years later, it has never been found. Your sarcophagus sits empty in the silence. The gold capstone is gone. Even the gleaming white casing, the 144,000 polished stones that made your pyramid a mirror to the sun, are torn away over the ages and carried off to build a distant city. What remains is the bare gray skeleton the world sees today. Everything you owned was taken. The one fate you feared above all others, your treasure plundered, your form lost, came true in full. And yet, the name. You wanted more than gold, more than power, to never be forgotten. And in that alone, you won beyond your wildest dream. For nearly 38 centuries, your mountain stood as the tallest structure on the face of the earth. It is the last of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, still standing. 40 centuries after your final sunset, every soul on the planet knows the shape of your tomb. The man who feared oblivion became the single most unforgettable king in all of human history. But the gods have a cruel sense of justice. The whisper of the priests outran the truth. And so the world remembers your monument and remembers you as the tyrant who built it. You defeated forgetting. You could not defeat the story. So here is the question I leave with you, and I want your answer below. You spent the greatest fortune in history, 20 years, and the strength of a nation, not to live better, but to be remembered forever. Was it worth it? Would you have done the same? Comment below. If you held that much gold and that much power, what would you have built with it?